Every single organism, whether it is a human, a blue whale, a fruit fly, or the bacterium Helicobacter pylori, is composed of one or more microscopic units known as the cell. First discovered in 1665, these fascinatingly elegant embodiments of our physical form swim around in a sea of mystery, sustaining our life forces and allowing us to live for another second. But what are these cells made of? How do they manage to grant us the gift of life? And what happens when they turn against the organism itself? Basic overview of the cell. Our definitions and understandings begin to break down when we attempt to pinpoint the exact definition of a cell. However, the cell can loosely be defined as the smallest unit of life. Anything smaller than a cell is often considered closer to being dead than being alive. A classical example of this is the virus, which is often regarded as an object rather than an animated organism. There are an estimated 37.2 trillion cells in the human body. For comparison, there are around 200 billion galaxies in the observable universe, which signifies that there are around 186 times more cells in your body than there are galaxies in the observable universe. The volume of human cells varies drastically, ranging from a meager 30 cubic micrometers for the average sperm cell to 400,000 cubic micrometers for the average oocyte. The spectrum of sizes for different types of cells give rise to the difference in size for different organisms. There are two large categories of cells, prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. The main difference between the two classifications is the nature of the storage of DNA inside cells. The DNA of prokaryotes hang around freely inside of the cell in an area called the nucleoid, while the short segments called plasmids are found lying around in the cell. While in eukaryotes, the DNA is stored as chromosomes in a compartment of the cell known as the nucleus. There are two cardinal concepts in biology regarding cells: compartmentalization and specialization. Cell specialization occurs when, over time, different cells adapt and evolve to focus more on a specific task. For instance, muscle cells have specialized to aid in movement, while retinal cells have specialized to be able to capture photons of light and transmit information back to our brains. The unresolved or original cell is known as a stem cell. Stem cells become differentiated when the cell's DNA, or deoxyribonucleic acid, interact with molecules in the cell such that the genetic sequence becomes easier or harder to read by RNA molecules. We will dive into this process more detail in an upcoming video. For now, all you need to know is that cells become differentiated and specialized because of how different molecules interact with the cell's DNA. These changes in what parts of the cell can be sequenced survives cell division, thus leading to different cell types. Through specialization, groups of cells form structures called tissues, of which there are only four main types: epithelial, connective, muscle, and nervous. Epithelial tissue forms coverings of body surfaces. Muscle tissue aids in the movement of the organism and its body parts. Nerve tissue aids in the transfer of messages, and connective tissue links other tissue types together. Tissues can combine to form organs, which are structures in the body that specialize in the function of a being, such as a stomach or the brain. Finally, multiple organ systems give rise to an organism, a being that can sustain itself through various pathways. You are an example of an organism, as is a bacterium or a frog. Meanwhile, cell compartmentalization is the process when cells can divide their work among subunits of the cell, known as organelles. The word organelle means small organ. Each organelle works closely with one another and aids in the overall cellular continuity. Let us take a look at some of them. The organelles. The first organelle we will look at is the cell membrane, or the cell surface membrane, or the plasma membrane. The membrane acts as a wall that separates the inside of the cell from the outside, yet some substances, such as oxygen or water, can pass through the membrane, thus making it selectively permeable. Some species have an additional organelle on the outside of the membrane known as the cell wall that aids in the structure and support of the organism, which is why plants do not require bones for structural support. The cytoplasm is a gelatinous fluid that fills up the interior of the membrane. The cytoplasm acts as the foundation or the ground of the cell from which all other chemical reactions and processes take place at. The nucleus is an organelle that only eukaryotes contain that houses the cell's genetic code. Because of the nucleus's importance in the continuity of the cell, it is one of the only organelles that have a double-layered membrane separating the inside of the organelle from the rest of the cytoplasm. The nuclear membrane, or the nuclear envelope, has double layers with tiny pores. These microscopic holes are for RNA, ribonucleic acid molecules, to be able to pass in and out of the nucleus during protein production. The interior of the nucleus is filled with a nucleoplasm that resembles the external cytoplasm, except the nucleoplasm has a much more jelly-like structure. The nucleoplasm houses the cell's chromosomes, condensed fibers of DNA. Floating in the nucleoplasm is the nucleolus, which produces small organelles known as ribosomes. The mitochondrion is the organelle that produces energy for eukaryotic cells. Through a process known as cellular respiration, mitochondria produce energy packet molecules called ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, for the cell to break down in the imminent future. Mitochondria, similar to the nucleus, contains a double-layered membrane, referred to as the inner and outer mitochondrial membranes, with the mitochondrial matrix inside of the organelle and the intermembrane space in between the two mitochondrial membranes. These membranes are generally there to aid in the process of cellular respiration and are imperative in the obtaining of energy in our bodies. Special organisms contain organelles known as the chloroplast inside of them. Chloroplasts contain green pigments called chlorophyll that can trap light energy and use it in a process known as photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is responsible for the production of oxygen and glucose, which are both used during the process of cellular respiration. Ribosomes are cellular particles composed of RNA and protein concerned with the synthesis of proteins. It is closely intertwined with reading and following what mRNA strands tell it to do and collaborates with the endoplasmic reticulum in the production of proteins. Two similar organisms bear the name endoplasmic reticulum. The smooth endoplasmic reticulum, often abbreviated as the smooth ER, and the rough endoplasmic reticulum, shortened to the rough ER. Both ERs are composed of folded membranes, giving them a structure that resembles a maze. The rough ER appears tough due to the presence of ribosomes on its surface. The rough ER produces proteins for the cell. Meanwhile, the smooth ER produces slippery fats and other substances for the cell and appears smooth due to the absence of ribosomes on its surface. Once protein or fat molecules have been synthesized by the ribosomes and the ERs, the compounds are sent to the Golgi body, or the Golgi apparatus. These organelles are shaped into structures called perinuclear bodies and vesicles, and they are situated around ERs and the cell's nucleus. The Golgi apparatus packs and ships the molecules that it receives from the ERs in vesicles made from its own membrane, and these vesicles reach the cell membrane where they will likely be shipped off to other cells. While consuming and utilizing nutrients, cells sometimes end up with an excess quantity of nutrients. These excess substances are temporarily stored in bubble-like organelles known as vacuoles. In animal cells, multiple small bubble-like structures sequester waste products. Meanwhile, in plant cells, the vacuole is generally much larger, forming a large central vacuole that primarily maintains the water level inside the plant cell. Lysosomes are similar to vacuoles in the sense that they are also membrane-bound organelles that appear to be bubbles. Lysosomes contain acids and potent digestive enzymes called hydrolytic enzymes that destroy waste products, intruding pathogens, and help decompose nutrients that are too large for cellular respiration. Lysosomes are also what cause a cell to destroy itself in a process called Apoptosis is if the cell is damaged beyond repair. Plant cells and fungi cells do not contain lysosomes, as their cell walls can keep out intruders quite well. Endosomes are a broad group of organelles that deal with the storing, packaging, shipping of different substances in the cell. Endosomes are formed through a process known as invagination, through which the cell membrane folds in on itself to form a vesicle. Through a process called endocytosis, nutrients from the outside of the cell get shipped inside via the temporary organelles. These endosomes may eventually become lysosomes or vacuoles. Centrosomes are organelles that aid in cellular replication. Centrosomes are amorphous structures composed of two smaller structures known as centrioles. Centrioles are composed of thin strands of cellular material known as microtubules, which align in such a way that the chromosomes stored in the nucleus can be replicated. Summary and conclusion. In summary, we are composed of trillions and trillions of dynamic protein robots known as cells. They are made of even smaller structures known as organelles, with roles ranging from energy production to replication aiding. But what about cancer, cellular replication, energy harvesting, cellular regeneration? Those wonderful topics will have to be postponed for the second video in this series. Stay tuned to the Information Institute, and thank you for watching.